And like that, we are off and running. Hearing a little reverb, but off and running nonetheless. And with us today is Ray Woodson, our guy in the desert. What's up, Ray?
Hello, world. How you doing, Larry? Long time.
Man, it's been a while. How you been?
Yeah, I'm good. It's all good here. It was 92 degrees yesterday, so the desert's gonna desert. But everything's fine here. It's good to see you again. I'm excited for your new show. I saw the episode with Kate Scott last week. It was great.
Thank you.
So you're rolling it.
Well, we're having fun. It's a new medium, and it's today I'm hearing myself coming back to me in my ears, so I'm a little discombobulated, but we'll get through it. Let's jump right into last night. I didn't watch the Academy Awards. I kind of make it a point not to watch. Did you watch? What did you think of Will Smith? As Jim Harbaugh would say, he came with an open hand.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to the face, come with some knuckles.
Yeah.
Instead, he came with kind of a slap. But he didn't like what Chris Rock was joking around about Jada Pinkett, and he hauled off and hit him. Was it orchestrated? Was it impromptu? What was your take?
I know people were asking that, and I don't think it was. Maybe we'll find out something later. To be honest, we had some friends over for dinner last night, so I didn't watch any of it. Saw the video later on, and all I'll say about it, I asked whether Chris Rock filed charges. He didn't. So that's his business, I guess. Apart from that, I saw the joke. It was in poor taste. Will Smith laughed at first, but then Jada, you saw her reaction, and she wasn't happy about it, and I understand that. It was in poor taste. Doesn't justify going up and smacking somebody. So it distracted from all this other stuff that was going on, including the victory that should have been enjoyed by the Williams sisters for that movie. It was unfortunate because of that too. I don't know what else to say. There's a whole lot of commentary going on about today, and we get into an area that I feel like probably isn't my business. Those two men are going to have to come to some sort of peace about it on their own. And all I can say is if we're going to start normalizing smacking people because we're mad about what somebody said, that's not good, right? I don't want to see us get to that point. The last few years in this country, we've seen a whole lot of norms just shattered. So I think more than anything, it was just unfortunate that it happened. And I hope at some point those two can talk about it and come to some sort of agreement or some sort of peace.
Well, it was definitely weird to see. It's not something you see every night, and it probably will make more people watch it in the future.
I guess. I don't know. Are we going to go WWE on this now? Is that what they need to do? Yeah, I know the viewership was down a lot, but I hope it doesn't take something like that.
Yeah.
I come from a showbiz family, right? And I had a relative who won an Oscar. We went over to their house after they won an Oscar, and it meant something, at one point. Now, I think we are, what we're seeing now is some historic moments, and I'd like to focus on that. That's some pretty cool stuff that's been going on the last couple of years, but everybody's talking about this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's even distracted from the sports topics of the morning, which is, now Mike Florio is saying that Jimmy Garoppolo may get actually released because nobody wants a quarterback who's got a $27 million contract coming off of shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah.
What's your read on this? Did Lynch play his hand poorly? Did they get greedy? Do you think he ever had a second round pick on the table? Was that just something that you say to try to jumpstart the rest of the league into making an offer?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like there's a trade partner for the 49ers in Garoppolo. And it sounds like if they want to go with Trey Lance, that basically every team in the league is just going to kind of force them to release Jimmy G. How do you see it?
It looks that way. Well, when you trade all those picks to get Trey Lance in the first place, you're pretty much signaling to everybody that's the way you want to go. I would think that you don't see Jimmy G as your future. So a year ago, you already signaled that, right? So now you're in this situation where he's gone and gotten the surgery. What was it? Early March, he got the surgery. So now they're in a situation where I think, they're probably going to have to release him. He's not going to be there for the spring workouts, right? So Trey Lance is going to get all the snaps, and I think you got to move forward with him now. I understand that Jimmy's performance was definitely affected by the injuries. Never good to have a bum shoulder and a thumb, right? So, that's the caveat I would say. And, he performed well against certain teams when he was healthy, but that's all they've got at this point, I think, as far as a bargaining chip. So I don't know if you could say they misplayed it. I mean, they were in a position where I think that they saw a guy they really liked and they went and got him. And when you do that, people are going to start making assumptions, right? I mean, how many picks did they give up to get Trey Lance? So
they traded 2 to move up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a pretty significant move. At some point, you've got to stake your claim in the future. And I think this is probably the time. I mean, I get it. They were this close to getting to the Super Bowl. So you did so with Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback. Some could say in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo being your quarterback, but they did it. But is it going to be that much of a drop-off? Does he bring other things to the table? We don't know a whole lot yet. That's the problem. It's a guessing game with a young quarterback in this league. The comparison has been made with Mahomes. He sat for a year and all that, but we don't know if he's going to be the same scenario. It'd be great if he is. We don't know that yet. But at some point, you got to make that call, and I think they're at that point now.
Yeah, for some reason I can't see anymore now, Ray. I don't know if you can see me, but
I see you.
You can see me. I just for whatever reason can't see Ray. All right, let's get to where you are on Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance, obviously is the quarterback of the future for the 49ers. Is he the quarterback of the present? I guess that's the question. What did you think of him? What did you think of Trey when you saw him in the 2 starts this year?
Well, I think you saw pretty much what you'd expect of a quarterback at that point in his career. You're going to see mistakes, and you're going to see some good things. I was a little worried about them using him as a battering ram sometimes, especially on that one goal line play where he got knocked out.
Against Cardinals.
Against the Cardinals. That kind of stuff worries me, but I don't know if we saw enough of him to make any broad generalizations about what he's going to be in the future. I'll say this much. I didn't see anything that would be disqualifying for the future. I saw some things that were kind of tantalizing, but he's got a lot to learn. And eventually you got to learn it on the field. So again, I say, if you've traded up a couple of picks to get this guy and you think that much of him, at some point you got to get him out there. And it seems like, the dominoes are falling for that to happen now. And you get to the summertime, they're probably going to have to release Garoppolo and just move forward. We'll find out what he is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. This one from GTC Reels, he said, there they are. If Gary said to Ray, you'd let Kim Kardashian in the house if you were single and lonely, Ray would be like Will Smith.
Okay.
That was going back to an old Radnich Woodson exchange. Ray, remind us of that one.
Well, the whole deal with that was that I was never that crazy about Kim.
Right.
And Gary is like, you're lying. If you were single and she knocked on your door at midnight, you would let her in. And I said, yeah, I'd let her in and, make her some hot chocolate and then call for a cab, or I guess now it'd be an Uber. Not that crazy about it. He never believed me. I stand by my words. Larry,
GTC Reel says too many hands.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
the line.
Here we go. Matt Hudson says, "Go Ray, go Ray."
What's up,
Yeah,
Matt?
there's a lot of people up here, Ray, that would love to find out how you're doing. And tell us, you're down in the desert. Before we talk a little bit more sports, now that we got our mic issues ironed out, tell us a little bit about your path post KNBR and how you and your wife are doing out there in the desert.
We're doing great. We have been here 3 years now. We basically had planned to come here for a while. After the time at KNBR, I did a little more radio and then did some podcasts, and then we were real busy moving. And then at the point after that, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, had to get treated for that. That was for about 45 days. So I was lucky it was just radiation. I'd say just radiation, but it's better than chemo. And I know a lot of people out there have gone through this and they know how hard it is. So in a way, I was lucky. Caught it early. The prognosis since then has been very good. We get checkups every 6 months. And I'll use this platform to say, once again, guys over 50, or if you had your dad had prostate cancer or history with that, please get checked every year. I got checked from the time my dad passed about 20 years ago. His wife, my stepmom, said, you better get checked every year. And I kept to my word. And, well, it probably saved me. So I think that's something that I'll continue to do. And I would encourage other guys to do if they're in those categories, because now I'm healthy, I'm feeling good, and we're moving forward. And, I play a little bit of golf. That's about it. And we tend to the house. We've had a lot of things to do family-wise the last couple of years. I'm open to whatever happens in the future. The one thing that I try to do is not look in the past. You just move on. You're doing that now with this great show that you're putting together, and I think it's a wonderful idea. And so, that's what I'll be looking for, just new ideas in the future.
Well, that sounds good. What's it like now? You're we're living in Southern California, but obviously spent a lot of time in Northern California. What's it like moving to the desert? I mean, give me the best thing about living in the desert. Give me the worst thing about living in the desert.
Well, the drivers here are crazy.
Really?
Yeah, the red light is just a suggestion. First of all, I had my experience also with a wrong way driver on the freeway at night. Coming back from Scottsdale one night. That's apparently a somewhat common occurrence out here. You think California is bad, and yeah, there's some bad drivers in California, but man, it's a whole different brand here. That kind of stood out at me. So you got to be careful. You got to have your head on a swivel. But you can't beat the weather this time of the year. It's just great. Things are, as far as going to the DMV, just getting things done, it's a little easier. I mean, there are fewer people here, although there are a lot of people moving in. We live near Highway 303. It's a corridor that goes from west of Phoenix to north of Phoenix. It loops around, and it's becoming a big corridor of development and tech. And you're going to see a lot of huge tech companies coming here in the next few years. There's a lot of growth in the development. And normally you get a lot of spring training baseball. A couple of years ago we had COVID. We didn't have so much. This year we had the lockout, which was dumb. I'm glad they finally got through that, and we're having a little bit of spring training. That's one of the best things about it. But come summertime, we skedaddle.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You go back to California, or
yeah.
Well, when does it get just like, oh no, time to pack it up and get out of here? Because I always love spring training, but you see the difference in weather in Arizona from the beginning of spring training to the end. By the end of spring training, it's pretty smoking. It gets pretty hot, right? End of March. So I got to think, what, middle of April you're out of there? Maybe May. When do you tuck tail and get out of Arizona?
Well, I'd like to tuck tail in May, but it ends up being after Memorial Day, sometime in mid-June, that we finally get around to going somewhere. There's, things we want to do with the house. We want to make sure the garden's okay, because, you leave, you don't want to have everything die on you, Sure. So you have to make plans for that. But by mid-June, it's 100 every day. 100 is, you live here a while, 100 is tolerable. When it gets to 110, you bolt. That's just too much. The thing about down here, even
110.
100. 110 is that's a whole another level. I can tell you that. 100, you actually appreciate it when a day is just 100 or 101. So when it starts getting 105, 110, it's time to go. The thing about down here, even in the wintertime, is you're lower latitude, so the sun is still very strong, and you've got to be mindful of that. We got the sunblock 100 going every day.
Man, I know how much you love golf. Man, it's such a mecca for golf.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'd be playing all the time. By the way, bottom of the screen there is our sponsor today, Good Guys Hot Rod Custom Association, March 26th and 27th, Pleasanton Fairgrounds. And, of course, today being the 28th, meaning the show is this weekend, so you did miss it. But they are our sponsor, and they did an incredible show this weekend. It was the Good Guys 38th All-American Get-Together at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton. And if you were out there, man, 3,000 plus American-made cars and hot rods and muscle cars and trucks. They were all out there on display. And if you want information on where the Good Guys goes next or when they'll be back in Pleasanton, because they will be back in Pleasanton, just hit the website right there. Good-guys in the middle, good with the dash in the middle, guys.com. Good-guys.com. Thanks to Andrew Ebel and all the good people at Good Guys for being our sponsor the first couple weeks of the Krueg show. All right, so we've hit the Will Smith thing. We talked a little bit about the Niners and Jimmy G. Let's go to the Giants because, the Giants are coming off of, I don't even want to call it a magical year. I mean, it was the wildest year of Giants baseball of my lifetime. I mean, they were picked to be 500, or maybe some people not even 500, Ray, and they won 107 games. I mean, when I saw the Giants in 1993 win 103, I thought, I'll never see anything better than this. Why? Because I remember watching that whole season all the way through, and it was like they never lost. When you win 103 games, it's like you're winning every single day. This last year, they won 107 and won the division over the Dodgers by 1, only to get ousted in Game 5 of the playoffs by the Dodgers at Oracle Park on a questionable call, but that's really neither here nor there. What'd you make of last year's Giants? Before we get to this year's Giants, what'd you make of last year's incredible turnaround, 139 years of Giants baseball, and 2021, a year that they were projected to be 500 or some cases worse. They set the record in 2021. It was an amazing thing. What'd you think?
Unexpected, and I think even unexpected by the front office. And I saw one over-under on wins was 75 at the start of the year. And I thought, no, they're going to be better than that. Right. I did think they were going to be better than that. I thought they'd be on the cusp of contention for a wild card spot, maybe 85, 87 wins. Nobody saw this coming. I mean, everything kind of fell into place, and it had its own momentum, right? When you're winning and you've got that confidence as a group, you start pulling out games that maybe you didn't a couple of years ago. And then a guy like Lamont Wade comes along, and he has 6 game time or go-ahead hits in the 9th inning. And that hasn't been done by a hitter in 40 years. So it took a few one-offs, right, to get to a point where you're winning 107 games. And it's maybe the best pennant race I've ever seen between the Giants and the Dodgers, certainly right up there, all the way to the very end. And then they meet in the divisional series, and they played toe-to-toe. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Larry, and say they're not going to win 107 this year.
Yeah.
I know that's,
You sure about that?
Yeah, this is hot take central here. But I think the Dodgers right now, they're set at 97.5, and they might go over that. They're stacked. I mean, they're unbelievably stacked. I think the way the Giants are looking at it, the comparison I made last year was like to the 2014-2015 Warriors in this way, in that they arrived a year sooner than I think their plans expected, right? Yeah. I think they were looking at a build up to that kind of year for 22, and it happened a little early. But now I think they're firmly cemented as a contender, and now you've got another playoff spot this year. So you've got to be thinking about it like, all right, maybe we're not going to, go step by step with the Dodgers this year, but we can get in and we can still win this. That was their method in 2010 and 2014, and they won the division in 12 and they won it all. But I think they're looking at it as we're going to pitch. We're going to play pretty good defense. Hopefully we'll have enough power and offense. I don't think they're going to hit 241 home runs again,
right?
But, they have enough offense to stay a contender, get in, and then do some damage. They're going to really miss Buster Posey, though. I mean, any team would. That's going to be the one that I don't know how they get around that. Joey Bart's going to have to step up big time this year. I know they like the way he's looked in spring training. Kurt Casale's a good backup, but you don't replace a guy like Buster Posey. You just don't. So that's going to be the one that's really going to hurt. They didn't go out and get a big time bat. Chris Bryant went to Colorado. I probably wouldn't have paid what they paid for him.
Yeah.
And I think that the thinking is, all right, we're going to be there, and maybe trading deadline we'll go out and get another Chris Bryant type once again. That's how they can attract the hitters, by trades and using the pieces they have in the minor leagues too. And their minor league system is better now than it was 5 years ago, appreciably better. So they have pieces they can trade at the trade deadline. I think that's how they're looking at it. I think Farhan Zaidi has certainly earned a lot of trust for the way he goes about things and the incremental steps he takes. These small deals that he makes, they're not earth-shattering, but he'll replace a player on the roster with somebody who is incrementally better. And he does that again and again and again. And he finds these guys, like I mentioned, Lamont Wade. And I don't know if there's going to be another Lamont Wade this year, or Wade will, match what he did last year. But he's good at finding those people, he and Scott Harris. So I've got a pretty good amount of trust in him.
It is interesting. I mean, we've got this one on the screen here. A little chat comment from hella this, hella that. He says, your thoughts on the utility player Luke Williams acquired from the Phillies yesterday. So Farhan, as you stated very well there, Ray, I mean, he believes in incremental improvement. Yesterday he traded, I think, a guy that they signed in the offseason named Will Toffey to a minor league deal. They sent him to the Phillies, and they acquired this utility player, Luke Williams. And then I spent some time last night looking at Luke Williams, and, he's got bat speed. And he can play second, and he can play third, and he can play center, and he looks like he's got, some offensive ability. So, who knows, right? Who knows? Maybe Luke Williams winds up being a key guy. But I just think at this team, like they, what to me, it seems like lefties are going to absolutely dominate them this year because no Buster Posey, no Chris Bryant, no Donovan Solano. Right. And those might have been three of your best hitters, right-handed hitters last year, and you lose all three of them. Solano went to the Reds. You mentioned Bryant to the Rockies, and then, of course, Buster opted to retire. So they lose three really good right-handed batters from, a lineup that probably needed a little bit of extra punch anyway. So, as much as I like, I think Luke Williams looks intriguing, and I would not be shocked at all if Luke Williams winds up being a useful, cog in their wheel, so to speak. But, as far as I got to think, unless they make somewhat of a significant addition to their lineup, I mean, just around the horn, Belt's coming off a career year, Crawford's coming off a career year. You don't have a healthy Tommy La Stella, and you don't have Donnie Solano. Longoria's a year older. No Buster, and now you're going to Bart, maybe Patrick Bailey, maybe Casale. So the catching position's a question mark. You have an entire left-handed hitting outfield and Jock Peterson, Yaz and Lamont Wade. So against lefties, what happens against lefties? What does that lineup look like against lefties? So I don't think he's done. So I'm not going to sit there and say, they're destined for a bad year. One, I just think they're, they've got too good a pitching. And then the analytics people have made the Giants a good defensive club because now their spray charts are perfected and their positioning. Defense, Ray, used to be about pitching and defense. Now it's about pitching, defense, and your analytics and how you're positioned. And the Giants last year, I can't tell you the number of times I saw somebody rip, some 115 mile an hour ball off the bat, and it goes right to Darren Ruff. Or, right to Yaz or right to Lamont Wade or right to Longoria. So now, the teams that are on the cutting edge of the analytics, I think have an edge defensively on the rest of the league. So their pitching's good. Their defense is almost guaranteed to be good. It's just a matter of can they hit. And if they can find a way to score 4 and 5 runs a game, they're probably going to win 90. And if they can't, it's probably closer to 80. That's how I see this.
Well, yeah. Well, they scored close to 5 runs a game last year.
Yeah.
I don't see this lineup doing that.
No.
It may still be enough, like you said, to get to the 90 win marks or thereabouts. You mentioned Darren Ruff. That's a right-handed bat. They're certainly
they still have Ruff.
Will make a big contribution. And some of these other guys, I mean, Longoria was making a contribution, but he's up there in years. You can't count on that. Wilmer Flores, Joey Bart. I mean, they'll all be contributors, but I think that's probably one area that they would address, and maybe they do that by the trade deadline, is get that right-handed bat. That is a weakness for them. They face righties more than they do lefties, and I think that's part of the calculus. But I think that is, I'm sure they're aware of it. That's probably an area that they need to address. The other thing about it is we used to joke about how many coaches they had.
Right.
It's like 2 coaches for every player almost.
Yeah.
And turns out that was a pretty damn good idea. The level of instruction and detail orientation that they have now is probably better than a lot of teams. And that's reflected, like you said, in the spray charts and the scouting reports and all that. But, it's funny, as much as they're known for the analytics, and they're certainly about all that, I hear Farhan and Gabe Kapler talk about the intangible side of the game, too, a lot, about how they brought in guys who are going to create good chemistry in the clubhouse, who are team-oriented. As much as, Lissell has been bothered by injuries, they really give him a lot of credit for encouraging that kind of atmosphere. You have the veteran players, but there's 2 guys left now from the championship years in Belt and Crawford. But beyond that, they've had to remake the clubhouse, and the clubhouse chemistry is a big part of what they talk about. I don't know if this is a family show or not, but they have that one phrase. You can bleep me out later, but they call it a no dicks policy. That's what they talk about a lot. They want team guys. They don't want guys who brood because they're not getting their at bats or their playing time. They want guys who, when they get pulled out of the game, they're on the railing rooting for the guy who replaced him. And that maybe that stuff isn't talked about as much in this era of launch angles and so forth, but you're still dealing with people. You're still now dealing with 26 in the clubhouse. It's still important. And I'm glad to hear them recognize that.
Yeah. I thought Kapler from year 1 to year 2 was, showed real growth.
Yeah.
Year 1, I thought he was wed to the numbers. Year 2, he had the numbers, but I thought he was managing the game that he was watching much more so than the previous year. So, to me, the analytics is all about just information, and then can you do both? Can you use that information to your advantage and still have the instincts that a Bochy had as you're watching the game so that you're making the right decision for your team? I did ask Brandon Crawford last year. We had him on in September, and I asked him, Ray, I said, how, to me, it's an amazing thing. You've got all these players on this team that have rings from winning the World Series. I said, you got a very inexperienced coaching staff. And I said, but it just seems like your inexperienced coaching staff has really helped many of the veterans, including yourself, make these improvements this year. And he said, you know what? We've always had great analytic information on our opponent, but he said, now the information's that much greater and it's that much more detailed. And he said, the information that we have this year from our coaching staff is the best we've ever had since I've been here. And that was like, whoa, man, that's an eye opener, because it's not like they were some chopped liver team. This team won 3 world championships. And now Crawford is saying, yeah, but you know what? The information that we're getting from this coaching staff, from this group of analytics people, from this front office, the assistance that they're giving us as far as information is better information than we've ever had before, more detailed information than we've ever had before. It's one thing for guys like us to say it, but it's a totally different thing for a guy like that who, has a lot of credibility and obviously went through it, lived it.
Mhm.
He knows the difference between the information he got this year, last year, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So for him to make that kind of statement to me was very eye-opening and very much a statement that this young coaching staff may not have rings, but they have won over the veterans in that room, and they've done it by showing them that the coaches can make those players better players. And that's the deal right there. If you can do that, man, you're going to have the ear of major league players, whether you got rings or no rings. If you can make a guy better, he's going to listen to you. And they've won over their vets in that clubhouse.
Well, a couple of years ago, Crawford was looking like he's heading on the severe downslope.
Absolutely.
About 35, he was looking kind of lost. And so I think there was a recognition on his part that something had to change at that point in his career. He was smart enough to know that it's not easy for a veteran player to make a total change in their outlook or their approach. But I think he recognized something had to change. And when you start seeing the results, then you have that belief. And if you believe also that you have better information now than you've ever had, that gives you great confidence. It gives you great confidence that when you go to a plate, you have the toolbox in your head to approach things in a better way. And I think we've seen that with a few hitters, not just Crawford. And, Brandon Belt hit 29 home runs in less than a full season.
Yeah, he was great last year.
His overall power numbers were maybe top 5 in baseball.
Yeah.
If you extrapolate it out to a whole year, is incredible. And of course, they closed the arcade, right? They closed the arcade gate, so that made it a little better as far as how the ball carried to right field. That was helpful for a while. But obviously, his approach had changed a little bit too, and he still had a pretty good batting eye. This team didn't match Barry Bonds for home runs. No player on the Giants matched Barry Bonds last year. The last year he played, he had 28 home runs. Nobody in the Giants matched that until Brandon Belt last year. It's an amazing stat to me. And all these guys coming in, hitting home runs. How many got into double figures in home runs on the Giants last year?
I think it was 6, 7, maybe
more.
Maybe more.
Yeah, and they had 17 guys who had 5 home runs or more. So it was they're stepping down the line. That was not the we're used to seeing it a few years ago. So there was definitely a change in approach, a change in results, and that the veteran players, when they buy in, that's really big. And then when you see a journeyman player come along and start getting results too, that's a pretty damn good endorsement. When you have somebody who's been playing, pieces of a couple of years in the majors, and then they make a big impact, like a Lamont Wade or Darren Ruff, who had been overseas and comes back, and his power numbers were great too. So they know what they're doing. I don't have any doubt about that. They know what they're doing, and I think they have grown. I think Gabe Kapler, you mentioned him, the more you manage, hopefully the more you do get a feel for the game and learn more things. And he went a little more against the grain last year, against what would have been expected, because, and this was a line I used a lot in post-game shows, is a lot of times the manager has information the media doesn't have, about how a player is feeling or what they're going through on a particular day. And I think he used that from time to time, used that instinct and said, I'm going to give this guy a little bit of rest. Here's somebody who's been swinging the bat pretty good, has been looking pretty good in batting practice or whatever, seems to be feeling a little better. And he's not exactly the bat that you would want up in a particular situation. It's not always just righty lefty and track record and things like that. So he did a little bit of that last year to good effect.
We're talking to Ray Woodson. He's joining us today on the Krueg Show, and he just gave us some insight on how to stave off the Salty Balties of the world. R.I.P. Salty Balty, by the way. In the post game, you don't always know, Salty. Anyway, Salty's looking down on us right now. GD5 says, I'm still not sold at all on Joey Bart. I know that Patrick Bailey's a year away probably, but Ricardo Genovez can step in and contribute a better glove in a decent bat. I haven't seen Genovez GD5. I did watch last night's game on the MLB Network, and I saw Patrick Bailey rip a double down the right field line. And Patrick Bailey looks a lot better offensively than he did a year ago. So I would not be shocked if you saw Patrick Bailey at the big league level this year. And I'm also with you, GD5. I will be in that camp that I'm not sold on Joey Bart, and for a number of reasons. But Ray, give me your thoughts on Bart before I weigh in here. What's your thoughts on Joey Bart? He was a second pick in the draft. He called his own game at Georgia Tech. Heck, they compared him to Jason Varitek, who also was a star at G-Tech. And he's, progressed through the system. But the fact that he keeps his glove down when the pitches he doesn't show a target, he gets crossed up. It seems like, I would say, 2 or 3 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
Buster got crossed up 2 or 3 times a year, and this guy's getting crossed up often. But obviously, big, strong right-handed bat, a lot of power potential. And if you watch him just catch and throw, he's got a howitzer for an arm. Give me your thoughts on Joey Bart, and do you think they'll go with him this year? And they won 107, and Farhan and Gabe are very competitive. Will they throw Bart out there, or do you think somehow between now and opening day they either go with somebody else, make a trade, or just opt not to, put all their eggs in the Joey Bart basket?
Well, just from what I've heard, they like how he's looked.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what they do at the outset, just see what he can do. It's been kind of up and down going through the minor leagues. He had some decent moments in Sacramento last year, but he's still got some things to learn. There's no doubt about it. And listen, you're getting compared to Buster Posey, who was a master at his craft as far as A, how he framed pitches, and B, how he handled pitchers. And that just takes a lot of time to learn. So there are things that he does a little bit differently, some things that he's got to improve on. There's no doubt about it. So there's going to be a drop off here. I don't think they're going to get to the point where they go out and make a deal for a catcher just yet. I do think they want to see what he can do. He does have a little major league experience. It hasn't been great, but the talent is there. I mean, the physical talent is there. We all see that. I went to a game last Friday, I think it was, and he hit a home run, and he absolutely crushed the ball. I mean, yeah, it carries better in Arizona, but still, it was a good 420-foot blast, and you knew it was gone when he hit it. So the power is there, and we talked about right-handed bats. Maybe he's going to be one of those guys who fills in and gives a little contribution from the right side. But I wouldn't expect a great deal from him right away, but at some point, you've got to expect some results from a draft pick that high, who's had that much buzz about him. I've talked to him before and been very impressed with him. I think the word on him is he tended to be a little more aloof going through what he's going through, and maybe that was just he didn't want to overstep his bounds. But from what I hear, he's kind of opening up a little bit better this year. I mean, baseball, even for the most talented players, for the hottest prospects, you're going to experience some failure. And how do you deal with that? And he's had some failures along the line and some successes. Maybe he hasn't gotten here as quickly as he thought he would. But Buster Posey came back and had an outstanding year, and then surprised some people by retiring. Maybe the thought was, for a lot of people, he was going to come back and at least play again part-time this year and be effective. But now this is dropped in their laps, and I would think a smart front office would be planning anyway for a future without Buster, and that they're probably going to look at it like, all right, let's see what this kid, he's 25 now, not necessarily a kid, see what he can do. And I go back to Trey Lance. At some point, you got to see what they can do. And it doesn't mean that you let them fail repeatedly and, hurt the team long term. But this is somebody who obviously has some talent. And I think at least early in the season, they're going to throw him out there and see what he can do.
J Hutch 91 says, Larry and Ray, thoughts on the Giants signing Conforto from the Mets? It's funny, hell of this, hell of that. Says Conforto not getting vaccinated is the issue. I didn't realize that. I didn't know his vaccination status. I don't really care about his vaccination status, to be totally honest. But, he turned down $18 million at the beginning of the offseason from the Mets. And I got to think none of these offers that he's going to get now are even going to approach half of that, let alone $18 million per year. The only reason I would say he's not really a fit is just what we mentioned before. Yaz, Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, they're all lefties. Do you really need to add another left-handed bat to to this outfield. To me, that's probably not a fit. That would be my guess. That, to me, this one is more interesting. Matthew Corrick says, Elliot Ramos, your thoughts? I don't know how much you said you went to a game. I don't know if you saw Elliot Ramos, but Elliot Ramos, I've been touting him for years now, literally years. But this year he showed up in Arizona and he's lean. His bat speed's great, better than I've ever seen. Marty, when I talked to him last year, was like compared him to Willie Mays as far as his just, you look at him, his body type. He's strong, he's powerful, he's athletic.
That would be good.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said, Marty. I said, well, you know what? If they get Willie Mays, then maybe they will win 107 games again. But Elliot Ramos, he's one. It just kind of shows how difficult it is to make it in the big leagues. Like Jalen Davis just got sent down, and Elliot Ramos is a guy that is you would think at this point ready. But sometimes guys never get ready. Sometimes guys never graduate from AAA to the major leagues. I don't think he's going to be on that list, but this might be the year, Ray, for him to kind of break through.
I saw a couple of his bats, and that's one of the things. It was the bats. It is there. It's without doubt there. But it's the approach, hard contact he's going to make consistently, and his numbers weren't overly impressive last year when he got up to Sacramento, but. There's something to work with there, obviously. I remember when he came to the Giants and they signed him, and I think he was 17 at the time, and we all talked to him at the dugout, and I asked him, what does he think his timeline is, his expectation for actually getting to the show? And he said 3 to 4 years would be his hope. And then, COVID happened, so that for the minor league players definitely set things back a year, so you have to have that understanding. But it's coming. This guy is coming, and maybe by the end of this year. And I think that he's a guy to be excited about. I think that he's probably not the guy I'm most excited about, though. I'm most excited about Marco Luciano. I think that Luciano is a guy, if you ever watch him in any game, the talent just jumps out at you. But he's a little further down the road. Yeah, that's what I'm really excited to see in the near future. Also, Matos had a great year.
Yes, Luis Matos, another guy.
Is going to be a tantalizing player to watch. But Ramos is much closer. So we're going to be focusing on him for right now. And I don't know what his outlook is, what the comparable is for another player. But I do think this guy can contribute, and hopefully by the end of the year.
You know who he reminds me of, Ray? Watching Elliot Ramos. Willie Mays, I was born in 1970, so I can't go there with Marty. But he reminds me a little bit of Raul Mondesi.
Okay.
Great straight line speed, great arm, very powerful, really strong right field stroke. Could probably go out foul pole to foul pole as far as, he'll hit the ball with authority the other way. He reminds me a little bit of Raul Mondesi. That's a guy. We have a guy here, J Hutch 91. He says, have you guys seen Marco Luciano? He's been crushing it, went 4 for 4 with a home run yesterday. I believe that 4 for 4, J Hutch, was against AA batters. Yeah. He was in the game yesterday against the Angels, and I think he struck out. But what Ray's talking about is clear as day. When you watch the kid, he's got these broad shoulders, small waist, tons of bat speed. Physically, he's exactly what you're looking for as far as a prototype. I don't know about his hands and his actions and whether he'll stay at shortstop, whether he'll move to third, second, center field, but he looks like a guy who 2 years from now, and realistically, it should take about 2 more years. 2 years from now, though, I think he'll be at Oracle Park doing great things, and people will be walking around San Francisco with Marco Luciano shirts. I mean, you can tell when there's like a guy on a different level, and he's on that different level. Bat speed, physicality, the improvement from day to day. If you talk to the Giants farm director, they love Luciano and are bringing him along with patience. And I think as I said, it's still going to take a couple of years. It's not going to be this year. It's probably not even going to be next year. But 2 years from now, get ready to see that guy at Oracle Park, and you may see some incredible things. I don't think he's ever going to be Brandon Crawford defensively, but he may be a significant bat that can hit 3, 4, 5 in your lineup and maybe be a star hitter in the league. So he looks really good to me. And then you mentioned Luis Ramos, Ramos. He's really exciting. I mean, center fielder with bat speed and power, and takes a huge cut. They'll probably have to choke it down a little bit, but Ramos looks like a future star outfielder for the Giants. And they have not been able to develop outfielders for the last couple decades. So it would be great to see Ramos and Matos, I should say, is the guy I was just talking about. Yeah. Matos and Ramos, to me, I think will break through. Won't be this year. Ramos this year, maybe Matos next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of these guys, they really think they can handle it. They'll rush them a little bit.
Yeah.
They'll move them up in a league that's above their age as far as the average. So just to kind of see what they can do. So that's another way that you take the stats a little bit with a grain of salt, because you give them time, and I think things will come around for these players. And the ones that they really think can handle it, they'll throw them up to AA and AAA a little bit early. But I think Matos pans out as a guy who can play at least average defense in center field, and with the offense that he can provide, that makes him very much a plus player. And as far as Luciano, that game he's talking about where he went 4 for 4, I saw the tape on it, and he crushed 2 to left field, and then I think he hit one off the wall, I think, in right field. Okay. And my favorite part of the video is, there's nobody there. There's no fans or anything. And you're just waiting to see what happens. Then the second base umpire comes into view and goes like that a couple of times. That was great.
Ray, what do you think of the closer spot? Somebody on here was asking about the closer spot. Let me see if I can find that question. But basically saying, who do you like closing for the Giants this year? I mean, do you want it? Here it is. Kevin Fontana weighing in. Who do you think gets the closer role? Jake McGee, Camilo Doval? He says he's thinking Doval. Doval gave up the hit to Bellinger in the playoffs that ultimately cost the Giants. But, man, he was awesome down the stretch. And his 2-pitch mix of fastball slider is just deadly. But McGee's the veteran. And McGee's a 1-pitch guy. McGee's fastball. Occasionally he'll mix in a slider if you're sitting on his fastball too much and he thinks you're getting too good a look at it. But he's basically a 1-pitch guy. But he's the veteran. What do you think? Go with the lefty and the veteran, or go with the power young righty and take a chance on Doval's development?
Well, this is going to sound like a mealy-mouthed answer, but McGee or Doval? Yes. I think there are times he will use McGee over Doval. I think it's going to depend on the situation. Probably the lion's share of the opportunities are going to go to Doval, unless, he goes downhill, something changes drastically. But if he's the pitcher we saw at the end of last year, I think he's going to get a lot of chances and should. Think about it. When the season started last year, he wasn't even a thought. Right. And then he gets thrown into the fire, and how he responded in these high pressure situations, for the most part, came through beautifully. So I hope that, this is the thing. Every young relief pitcher, you come into these situations like he was, you don't have the historical wounds, as far as the situations where you blew a game. You don't have a lot of that emotional
scar tissue. Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. You don't have the emotional scar tissue yet. You're going to develop that no matter who you are, no matter how good you are. All right. So he had a little bit of that in the playoffs, right? So how does he respond to that? That's what we're going to see. And if he gets through it, then he's going to be great, because obviously, like you said, the pitches are there. But there are a lot of pitchers we've seen go through the major leagues, and especially as a closer situation, those high pressure opportunities, they don't come through. And no matter how good their pitchers are, if they're not right up here, it's not going to happen for them. So how does he respond to that? That's going to be interesting to see this year, but the tools are definitely there.
Tommy says, Doval, that slider is effing nasty. All right. Well, Tommy, it's
Well
early in
put.
the morning. Well played. Yeah, exactly. GD5 says, Luis Matos is way ahead of Marco Luciano offensively. He hit 313, drove an 86, 21 steals last year. Both are 20 years old. I'm hoping Matos will move up to Eugene and then AA this season. Yeah, I mean, Matos, if there's one guy that the Giants should absolutely not trade, it's Luis Matos. I mean, he looks really, really special. Let's finish up since we're coming up on our final 10 minutes of this hour, and I don't want to take more than an hour of your time. Let's finish with the Warriors. I think the Warriors are incredibly interesting at this point because, we all thought, man, they're a title contender. Then we watched them, or we thought there was a chance they were a title contender. Then we watched them come out this year with a new roster, a little bit some new faces, and they beat Phoenix on Christmas without Klay Thompson, without James Wiseman. And you're thinking, you know what? They're going to get Klay back. They're going to get Wiseman back, and they're going to win a title. And then Steph suddenly hit, kind of crested the hill and looks like he's on the downside now and has had a really kind of a rough year for his standards. And then Klay Thompson came back, and while he looks good, the consistency hasn't been there, and he's not quite the same shutdown defender that he was. Then you mix in Draymond Green with his disc issue, and as somebody who's had disc surgery, I'll tell you, running up and down on the hardwood floor is not what the doctor orders for disc problems. So you got that going on. And then James Wiseman had swelling in the knee, could never get back on the floor, and just in the last couple of days, they've deemed that he's done for the year. So they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. They're one of the smallest contenders in the league. And yet they still, because of their pedigree, have a shot. They're not particularly playing well right now.
Nope.
I mean, why don't we start with Golden State as far as James Wiseman? Why don't we start there? Is James Wiseman a bust? I mean, they passed on LaMelo Ball for James Wiseman, and right now, today, that's looking like a bad decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time, a lot of people were wondering about Wiseman versus Ball. So a lot of this isn't just second guessing. There were a lot of people at the time who wondered about that. It's fair to ask, if LaMelo Ball were here, would Jordan Poole have developed? Would he have had the opportunity?
Good question. Yeah,
as he has. We don't know. I would have been nice to find out that having all those guys on the roster, how that would work out. You couldn't have foreseen some of this stuff that happened with Wiseman. And then, he's been star-crossed. There's no doubt about it. There's been some bad luck, and I feel for the kid. You start out with COVID and then the injuries on top of that. And, I know the comparison some people are going there with Greg Oden.
Right. He had microfracture. This is a meniscus that's having a hard time. He's having a hard time rehabbing from a meniscus. That was a microfracture. And I'm not a doctor, but I believe two dramatically different things.
Yeah. I don't think it's going there. The other comparison is Embiid. He had some injuries earlier.
Yeah, 2 years he didn't play.
Yeah. So who knows? This could be apples and kumquats, but those are two comparisons that have been made. I think it's going to be something different than that. I think there's definitely some talent there. There's definitely some tools you want to work with. Why they drafted him with very little college experience, but unfortunately, that's all been set back for a couple of years now, and that's never good. And I didn't expect anything from this year, to tell you the truth. I didn't expect him to make a big contribution to the playoffs, and it makes me wonder: did the Warriors think that was going to happen, and that's why they didn't go out and get a big? Because I think that's going to come back to bite them. And you're asking Draymond to provide some help in the middle, along with Kevon Looney, who's got to be worn out by the end of the season, and Draymond with his back issue, and he expressed frustration last night. He was definitely not at the point where he can get his body to respond the way his mind wants him to on a consistent basis, and it's affecting their defense. They don't have a big, so people attack the lane. They have to overhelp, and that leaves people open in the corner for threes. And we saw that repeatedly last night. We've seen that in a few games. Their defense has really slid badly. And of course, it all comes back to they don't have Steph. That definitely hurts. I've said it a million times. This was, is, and always will be Steph's team. He's the guy that makes it go. He is without a doubt the MVP, and we see that now. Draymond is definitely important when he's right, especially on the defensive end and quarterbacking the team. But it's about Steph. They always have a puncher's chance when Steph is there. They always have a chance. He's so dynamic when he's healthy. Is he going to be 100% for the postseason? We'll see. I mean, that was kind of a freakish injury. It wasn't necessarily a wear and tear injury with the knee. It was just one of those things that happened when Marcus Smart landed on him. Is this going to be kind of a repeat of 16 where he had a couple of injuries and had to fight through those? He's older now. He's 34 years old. How's he going to respond? That's all very concerning. The fact that their defense hasn't been there, they can't get everybody on the floor at the same time. Iguodala has been bubble wrapped, which I understand at his age. Let's see if he can contribute anything to the playoffs. And Clay has been inconsistent. There are games where he looks like Clay, other games where he's just not there yet. So the pieces aren't all fitting, and here we come almost to playoff time. So that's very concerning. And there's some nights I can't even watch them. Their defense is so bad, and they just look disjointed offensively. There are times when everything's clicking and times where it's most definitely not. I like Poole. I think he's going to be a terrific scorer in this league. He needs to improve his defense. I hope that Clay can get back to where he was. Definitely a good step that he played 40 minutes the other night. They definitely need to see that he can, stand up to that kind of wear and tear coming back from two catastrophic injuries. But I just worry that it's not all in place the way they want it to be, that they can gel when it comes to playoff time. But they're veterans. Those three core players, along with Andre, they've been together for a long time. They know each other. Maybe they can bring it together, but to tell you the truth, it wouldn't shock me at all if it's a first-round exit.
I know. You think of the Warriors in history. I can't think of a Warrior player that, no matter how great, that's ever really gone to the finish line in a Warrior uniform. Rick Barry finished elsewhere. Yeah. Chris Mullin finished elsewhere. Tim Hardaway finished elsewhere. You name it. Mitch Richmond dealt. Chris Webber dealt. I mean, they all their great players finished elsewhere. I think Steph Curry is going to be the exception to that rule. But what about Klay Thompson? What about Draymond Green? I don't know about you, Ray, and I love Draymond Green, and I've always been an advocate for don't ever trade Draymond Green. He's the key to winning, and I really believe that. But now where he is, he signed his deal with TNT. He's thinking about his next career. His back's breaking down. Man, if the Pistons came knocking this year and said, hey, we'd like to bring Draymond Green back home to Detroit, and we'll give you our lottery pick and Jeremy Grant or something like that, I'm doing it. I'm making that deal, and I'm turning the page, and I'm getting something of value. I'm not going to the finish line with Steph and Clay and Draymond. I don't think that's probably wise either. I think that you're not going to be competitive if you have three guys making that kind of money, all in decline, getting worse and worse and worse. So I think, something's going to have to be done. They're not going to trade Steph, in my opinion. I don't think they should. And Clay is only just a step beneath Steph as far as popularity in the Bay Area. Green, I love Green, but man, as I said, if I can get that lottery pick from the Pistons and maybe a guy like Jeremy Grant because of the contracts, I'm doing it, Ray. I'm doing it. This is the off season. I am breaking up Draymond, Steph, and Clay and sending Draymond packing. Are you with me or are you against me?
I'll be open to that for sure at this point in Draymond's career. And also, you got to talk about Wiggins, too. Where's he going to fit in here? You're going to deal him as well. Kuminga's coming along pretty quickly.
So's Poole.
And so's Poole. And you're going to want to give Moody a chance. And he's shown flashes this year. Every franchise goes through this where it's time to reset. And the great ones do that. Okay. Even the Spurs did it. For all the years they depended on Tim Duncan, they flipped the script a little bit and they won another championship. Now they were fortunate to have Kawhi at 15. That was one of the great, value picks of all time. But you have to reset. And, I think the Warriors drafted well. They haven't always drafted well in the last few years, but they did. And they got a couple of guys who are really competing now, and I think are ready to take over next year. So I think that, with Draymond, with that back injury, it's going to be tough to go long-term anymore with him into his early 30s. I would be much more prone to keep Steph and Clay around.
Yeah. So first of all, what's the buzz in the desert right now? I thought the Suns getting Bismack Biyombo, added to their advantage over Golden State, because that's a big that the Warriors could have used. And I think that makes Phoenix, the far and away the favorite here. Have you been out to a Suns game, and what's the buzz in town for the Suns?
Well, it's been a buzz for a couple of years now, for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been I went to a Warriors Suns game a couple of years ago, but I haven't been to the Footprint Center recently. Seen a lot of games on TV and really like what they've been doing the last couple of years. And they've got a good front office and a terrific coach there, and a great guy in Monty Williams, whose story I think a lot of people know. And he's developed a really good culture there, and they've got a good bench. And, Booker goes down, Paul goes down. They don't seem to miss much of a beat.
Yeah.
So that's really a sign of a team that's got a great foundation. And Biyombo was a guy I wish, the Warriors could have found a way to bring on, but the Suns got him, and they were already problematic for a team like the Warriors with Ayton. Ayton's going to eat against the Warriors. He did a couple times this year, and then they've got McGee and they've got Biyombo. So I think they're the favorites to go all the way. They went to the finals last year. I think they've got the confidence and the roster to do it this year. And that it's kind of a weird sports town, because Phoenix is so spread out, right? There's not the identity with the city necessarily, or any one particular area, but you see a lot more Suns jerseys around than I'd ever seen the last couple of years. So that's what happens when you win. But I mean, this team's been here for 53 years now. I'm still hearing Al McCoy on the air doing Suns games. I mean, so there's a long tradition here, and they've only been to the finals, 3 times? You go back to 76, I think it was. And
yes, Gar Hurd against the Celtics, and then you've got the team with Barkley that lost to Chicago, and then of course recently.
So with all that time here, and they haven't had that great a winning tradition. I think for some fans, they were so conditioned to being also-rans that this is just like, wow. They're really good. It's like Sally Field at the Oscars. You really, really like me. They're really, really good. This is great. And they haven't gotten to the cynical part of being a fan yet. So it's kind of cool to see.
If you were ranking, you get a sense of these things as a guy who's done sports radio and probably listens to a little bit of Phoenix sports radio if you're driving around. How would you rank? I would say the Bay Area is Niners 1, Giants 2, Warriors 3, and maybe Warriors could be taking on Giants at some point, but that would be my order as far as passion of the fans: Niners, Giants, Warriors, then Sharks, a distant fourth.
Yeah.
How's that ranking look in Phoenix?
Well, it's the Suns. Yeah,
Suns is 1.
Yeah, Suns is 1 right now. But it's the same thing. Depends on who's winning. And the Cardinals were going great at the start of last year, and then they just kind of fell off the table. So they got all the attention when they were starting off so great in 2021. But the Suns play more games. They're top of mind a little more often when they're winning, and especially when they're making a deep run of the playoffs. And everybody was talking about them last spring, and I think it'll be the same. The Cardinals have done some really nice things too. And I don't know what their relationship with Kyler Murray is long term, though. I don't know if they believe.
I'm hearing a lot of whispers of immaturity there. I'm not sure. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of anybody who covers that team that's told me that, but I've just heard several whispers coming out of Phoenix that that maybe he's not the most mature leader
Right.
ever, and that there are people that scoff at some of the things he says and does. I don't know. You would
Yeah.
probably know better than I would.
I really don't. I just know what I hear on the radio, and some people questioning whether he's really that committed to doing the things he needs to do to get up to the next level. I mean, he's terrific talent. He's dynamic player. He's a dual threat, obviously, but there are times where, like you said, the way he reacts to situations, it makes you wonder, and that's not a good thing to have. It's not a good thing to have in your number one quarterback.
Hey, last one for you. The Warriors this year, you kind of referenced, maybe you've already answered this question. You kind of referenced the possibility of a one and done. So if I said to you, Warriors win the title or fall short, you're going to go with fall short, huh?
Yeah. That would be where the smart money is. When they started out the year, they looked like a team that was definitely going to be right there at the very end. They 18-2, and they played great defense at the start of the year, but everything has changed now, and injuries will do that. And when your core players are over 30, it's kind of hard to depend on that on a consistent basis. And remember, all those playoff games they played, that was like an extra season that was added to their careers on top of that in wear and tear. So that would be my bet. And if they do that, I guess they won't be king. Whoever's winning is going to be king.
And give me your quick thought on LeBron and the Lakers. They won the title in the bubble, and then it's like LeBron the GM kind of screwed LeBron the player with that addition of Westbrook. That was just a terrible addition, and it totally ruined them on the cap and kind of put a nail in their coffin as far as any chance of contending this year. I've seen some people suggest that in their mind, the Lakers may be able to pull some kind of upset in the playoffs. I don't see that happening at all.
No. I mean, obviously the Anthony Davis injury kind of killed everything for them this year, but Westbrook has just been brutal. So, I guess long-term, LeBron is probably going to do what he does, right? If things don't work out, there's always going to be another suitor for him down the road. I know a lot of fans talk about LeBron with Golden State. Please don't. That's sensory overload. I'm dealing with too much as it is. Let's not go there just yet. But he's got the pull, right?
Right.
So that's what happens, and it for better or for worse sometimes. And this is the for worse. That's a rough team to watch too. And you see it now where he gets frustrated with the people on the court for not rebounding or whatever. And I think, dude, you wanted these guys here. What are you getting mad at? This is the situation you wanted. You look in the mirror. So, I mean, that's the good and the bad you get with LeBron. I mean, incredible player. I sense at this point his mind is just on getting to Jordan's record, right? And getting number one in points scored. He just passed Kareem. I think, we've seen him be in blowout games where he's still in there, getting a few more points, right? Getting a few more rebounds. But I guess when you're at this point in your career and you've accomplished the things he has, I guess you earn the right to, whether it's helping the team out or not. I don't think it matters in this case yet. I don't think the Lakers are going anywhere this year.
Hell of this, hell of that. He says, I named Ray Woodson as someone Larry should have on his show. Hell of this, hell of that. You did, and we delivered.
Well, I hope you didn't regret the choice, hell of this.
Hey, Ray, we'd love to have you on from time to time on the show and get your thoughts. A lot of people up here in the Bay would love to hear your thoughts on sports going forward. So if you don't mind us bugging you, man, by the way, Dusty Gold agrees with both of us. No, please, no LeBron to the Warriors.
I'm not the one who suggested it. I just brought it up. Somebody else did. Let me walk away from that fire.
Exactly. But we'd love to have you back on a regular basis. We're glad that you're doing well. Always a big Ray Woodson fan. I love the job that you did. You got a great sense of humor, and I love that your exchanges with the fans on Sports Phone. And you and I didn't get a chance to work together as much as I would have liked, considering we were both working at that radio station in and around the same time. But man, always respect your work and and have great respect for your sports knowledge and who you are as a person. So we'd love to have you back. Thanks for coming on, and say hello to your wife. Enjoy time in the desert. Any aces down there? Have you hit any? I know you play a lot of golf. You get any holes in one since you've been down there?
Came close a couple times, but I have the lone hole in one at Lake Chabot on the ninth hole in 2015. And, I was playing solo, so people might question that, but there was a guy on the next tee who heard it hit the pin, and he came down and he said, "Oh my God." And I said, "I owe you a drink." And he said, "Don't worry about it." And so I got the hole in one, and I didn't have to pay anybody to
look at that. You bought drinks for yourself.
Yeah. Right.
What's your favorite track? What's your favorite track there in the desert? Because like I played the Nicholas course. I think it was called the Legend at Arrowhead. It's in North Phoenix.
Yeah,
that was one of my. I like that spot. Obviously, I have played Camelback a bunch of times. Give me 3 or 4 of your favorite courses there in the desert.
Well, I played TPC Scottsdale once.
Really?
And I shot
the stadium course. The stadium course.
Yeah, I shot 97, and I thought I played great. So
wow, you're good. 97. How many balls did you lose?
Yeah, I lost a couple.
Yeah. Desert golf. You don't go chasing your balls in desert golf unless you want to meet snakes.
Oh no. Well, in January you're good, but definitely later in the year you don't want to do that. I play the bunny slopes, Larry. I don't play the more I don't play the more difficult courses, so it ensures I can shoot low mid 80s that way. But there's a few around here in Surprise. One is called Traditions that I play a lot.
Nice.
There's a little track down in El Mirage. It's a dog track. It's not a great course, but it's easy to get on there, so I like to play down there. And then there's a course in Sun City Grand that we play called Cimarron, and it's a lot of fun to play there. But I told my wife, I'm not great, but I'm above average. She said, "Yeah, I've always said that about you. You're not great.
You're not great, but you're above average."
Yeah,
and in the desert, is it one of those things where if you get out, like everybody wants to get out super early, right? So like, what happens if is it cheaper in the middle of the day or something like that? If you or do people just not bother in the middle of the day in the summertime?
Yeah, there's a reason.
Is it empty, or are there people still out there in the middle of the day?
Oh, there's still some people who are just animals. They'll be out there and play. These 80-year-old dudes are out there playing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in July. I said, enjoy yourself. Have at. There's a reason those rounds are cheap. And there's no way I'm going to be playing in the summertime unless it's first light. And then by the time you're done, it's pretty hot. I played one time last year where at the end of my round it was 109 degrees.
Oh my God.
And it was time to go, and that was the round I broke 80, so I was really proud of that. But you don't want to have anything to do with anything over 100 degrees if you can avoid it playing golf. It's pretty dangerous stuff. But like I said, these old dudes, they're made of, I don't know, space age polymer or something, and they get out there and they get it done. So good for them. But we're enjoying it out here. Definitely looking forward to coming back to the Bay Area. And very happy to be on your show today. You're doing good stuff, and likewise, always respected your work. And be happy to come on again anytime.
Oh, Ray, you're the best, man. Enjoy the desert. We'll dial you up in a few weeks and get you back on, because we definitely want to get your thoughts throughout the summer on how the Giants are progressing. But thanks again for coming on, and have a great rest of your Monday. And when are you playing golf again? You got anything scheduled?
Next week in San Diego. So
nice. Where are you playing down there?
I don't know. I have a friend setting it up, so we'll find out. He's going to surprise me. Probably not Torrey Pines though.
You'll drive over the hill.
Yeah.
You'll drive. Yeah. So you go like what, west through Yuma and then up through. Isn't there like snow caps at the top of those hills going down into Southern California? I've made the drive from San Diego to spring training this time of the year, and it was incredible. We drove, it was, beautiful in San Diego, then snow at the top of the mountain, whatever mountain that is. And then by the time you get into Yuma, it's beautiful weather. And obviously Phoenix is glorious in March. So,
well, you go through Palm Springs in the wintertime, you'll definitely go get the snow-capped peaks going through there. But I think what you do is, you go down through Yuma on 8 and you go along the border. And then it surprises some people. You go over some pretty tall mountains before you get into San Diego, but it's a pretty nice little drive this time of the year. I wouldn't want to do it in July. But I always tell people, if you're going to drive out here, make sure you got lots of water packed and a cooler, because you never know when the car is going to break down. You're going to need that water. So,
oh my God, that's good advice.
All
right, Ray, have a great Monday. Thanks for coming on.
All right,
Ray Woodson, everybody. See you, Ray.